ministers to campaign for either side in the referendum once a deal is reached on the UK's relationship with the EU. He said the UK government will make a recommendation to the British people on which way to vote. Also tonight, an emotional US President Barack Obama has unveiled new restrictions on gun purchases at the White House, so the constant excuses for inaction have to stop. A very good evening to you, welcome to NNP News. David Cameron is to allow ministers to campaign for either side in the referendum once a deal is reached on the UK's relationship with the EU. He said the UK government will make a recommendation to the people on which way to vote well before the day of the election referendum, expected to be late in 2017.
My intention is that at the conclusion of the renegotiation, the government should reach a clear recommendation, and then the referendum will be held. But it is in the nature of a referendum that it is the people, not the politicians, who decide. And as I indicated before Christmas, there will be a clear government position, but it will be open to individual ministers to take a different personal position while remaining part of the government. Ultimately, it will be for the British people to decide this country's future by voting in or out of a reformed European Union. In the referendum, that only we promised and that only a Conservative majority government was able to deliver.
An emotional US President Barack Obama has unveiled new restrictions on gun purchases at the White House. He said that the constant excuse for inaction have to stop.
Our unalienable right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, those rights were stripped from college kids in Blacksburg and Santa Barbara and from high schoolers at Columbine and from first graders in Newtown. First graders. And from every family who never imagined that their loved one would be taken from our lives by a bullet from a gun. Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad. And by the way, it happens on the streets of Chicago every day. So, all of us need to demand a Congress brave enough to stand up to the gun lobby's lies. All of us need to stand up and protect its citizens. All of us need to demand governors and legislators and businesses do their part to make our communities safer. We need the wide majority of responsible gun owners who grieve with us every time this happens and feel like your views are not being properly represented to join with us to demand something better.
Police searching for a missing former EastEnders actress and her 2 children have found 3 bodies at their South East London home. Sean Blake and her 2 young sons aged 4 and 8 have not been seen since the 13th of December last year.
Police have confirmed that earlier today 3 bodies were found at the family home of Sean Blake. They have yet to be formally identified. Her family have been told, and I spoke to the lead detective on the case who said that their thoughts are with the family at this very difficult time. She went missing just a few weeks before Christmas. She and her 2 children had been visiting family in East London. A few days after she was reported missing, police went to the family home in Erith and spoke to her partner, Arthur Sim Simpson Kent. He then since disappeared and is still missing. They're still very keen to speak to him. She was an actress in the 1990s in the hit soap EastEnders. She also appeared in The Bill, but she retired from acting after developing motor neurone disease. She then retrained as a sign language interpreter, and police are very keen to speak to anyone who may have any information on what has happened.
Let's get a summary. In other news today, supermarket group Sainsbury's has said it made a bid approach for Argos and Homebase owner Retail Group in November. Offer was rejected. He said a deal would be an attractive proposition for customers and shareholders of both firms. Home Retail Group confirmed its rejection of the bid, which he said undervalued Home Retail Group and its long-term prospects. Sainsbury's said it was considering its position. It cautioned, however, there was no certainty this results in a formal offer. Also, Tim Peake is to carry out the first ever spacewalk by a British astronaut. Mr. Peake and national astronaut Tim Cooper will venture outside the International Space Station on the 15th of January to replace a failed voltage regulator. Mr. Peake launched on a Russian rocket on the 15th of December to begin his 6-month stay on the orbiting outpost. This will be the second spacewalk in under 3 weeks for Mr. Cooper, who has flown into space once before in 2009. The two Tims will don their spacesuits and exit the US Quest airlock to replace an electrical box known as the sequential shunt unit. A bus carrying almost 30 school children in North Yorkshire have been stuck in flood after the driver allegedly ignored a road closure sign. North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue helped 26 Easingwold school pupils off the vehicle when it became stranded near Newton-on-Sea just after 8 o'clock this morning. Finally, beneath Clapham South Tube Station lie a warren of tunnels which provided shelter for 8,000 people during World War II. After the war, the dormitories in South London became temporary accommodation for immigrants from countries like Jamaica who were invited to live in the UK. The tunnels, 120 feet below the surface, has now been opened for public visits by the Transport for London and the London Transport Museum.
Above ground, it's a tube station like any other, but underground, Clapham South hides a warren of life-saving tunnels preserved since the 1940s. So how deep underground are we going?
We're going 120 feet down, which is about 178 steps if we were taking them.
This deep level shelter was designed to take in 8,000 people as bombs were dropped over South London during the Second World War.
You would have been given an air raid ticket which would have told you where to come, which particular shelter to come to and which particular bed.
And these are the beds? These
are
the original beds?
The original beds, yes. They've been down here for over 70 years now. You know, they've been pretty good condition really, considering. The tunnels would have been meant for people all across London to come to. There was a public outcry at the beginning of the war because there was not enough adequate deep sheltering for people.
So they had to build these?
They had to build them, and they were all hand dug during the war.
The original signs pointing the way to the various dormitories are still here. Dormitories which protected those escaping bombs, but unbelievably dormitories which became temporary homes for the immigrants invited to Britain after the war. These shelters also served as accommodation for the people getting off the Empire Windrush in 1948 from Jamaica. This is a picture of some of the new arrivals who were registering here at the Labour Exchange.
And that is your news at 10. Well, I'm back tomorrow at the earlier time of the normal time of 10 p.m. and our studio should be complete. I know there is a daybreak sign above the news logo. We are currently sorting that out, but from all of us here, we'll have some more cameras as well. We're having a few camera problems. But from all of us here, tomorrow the news will be sorted, and we'll be back for our normal show. From all of us here tonight, bye bye.